Hello, everybody. Welcome to another ResearchHub community call, where today we are very lucky to have Dr. Yu Wang joining us. We're going to start every other week or so having journal clubs and AMAs just to break up the community call rhythm and get some more cool events going on. So yeah, today Yu, who's been a part of ResearchHub for a couple months now, has agreed to present a ResearchHub original publication entitled "A Cloud Science Community Powered by Digital Tokens." Obviously, this applies a lot to what we're hoping to do with ResearchHub. And you, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you came up with this idea independently of ResearchHub before you had heard of what we're trying to accomplish. So yeah, really excited to hear about your background, what brought you to this idea, and then discuss the paper as a group. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and thank you, Patrick, for inviting me. And I will briefly introduce myself. My name is Yu Wang, and I was a graduate student in Harvard Medical School under the supervision of Dr. George Church and in Hongying in the Weiss Institute. And I graduated in 2019, and I did a very short postdoc now in a biotech company. Startup. Yeah, so as Patrick mentioned, I started to probably the story is like this. In 2017, I was trying to publish my first paper. I really hated the publishing system at that time. Then I started thinking if there are any better ways to do it. And also, I'm a huge, I like to look at those tech companies a lot, and I'm trying to think, oh, what we can learn from those. The world we've already been familiar every day, so I will probably just start with sharing a few slides. Great. Can you guys see the slides now?
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay, yeah. Cool. Yeah, so basically the title of the paper okay, so as before I started, there's a quick interesting thing here is as Patrick mentioned, this publication was published as an article, and actually this publication we were trying to publish it before in bioRxiv. It was actually rejected by bioRxiv because they think there is no data in it. But I'm really glad this community, this platform, provide a more open community to publish things without data. So basically, the title of the essay we wrote is a cloud scientific community empowered by digital tokens. And basically, the first thing I want to talk about is that if you look at this rank, it basically is most innovative companies of 2021, and you are I'm sure you guys are very familiar with all the 10 companies on rank the top 10 and in this list, as you can see, because it's everything. It's in our daily life, and it's Apple, Alphabet, Amazon. But for our scientists, there is another thing also in our daily life. It's science, but the science should be the most innovative thing in the world. But unfortunately, it's not even in one of the top 10 companies besides Pfizer. Pfizer is a pharma. It's still a little bit further from the science we are talking about today. So is there any other ways can we create innovative companies around science to make science more innovative? And then basically there are a few things I would like to share with the community today. The first part basically is cloud publishing and crowd source peer review. As I think most of us are already very familiar with this topic, as ResearchHub is also a cloud publishing system. But basically here you publish, you receive questions, comments. The one thing I would like to introduce or add on this thing, it's basically this kind of like machine learning based article distribution. I'm not sure how many of you are using TikTok. I'm like addicted to TikTok, which is unfortunate. But I would say this app, it's really good at finding what you want to see. and also what you like and what your background is. And so I think that the algorithm behind this can really be beneficial to this platform in terms of how to share or promote articles to other scientists, here to promote peer review. Because if you don't get the articles within your expertise or you are interested in, you will not open it or read it. If you are very interested in certain articles and suggested by this algorithm, I imagine you will basically spend more time and are more willing to spend your time to do the peer review. And this is one thing. And the second part is basically credit digitalization and the partition. Another, beside the publishing system, another big problem in academia is how to share credit. I think right now the system are mostly winner takes all, or is distributed equally. Mostly winner takes all. So I was discussing with Patrick earlier before this call is the winner takes all. You think that higher the top of the chain will not be affected, but actually not. The graduate students credit can be taken by the postdoc. Those postdocs credits are taken by the PI. The small PI the credits can be taken by the big PI. The big PI's credit can be taken by Nobel laureate. Even the Nobel laureate who is on the top of the chain can also lose their patent to another institution. So basically, no one can escape from this chain, and no one is happy about it. But unfortunately, that's how we are doing it right now. So the question here is, can we create a new system to make it better? And here we basically to share two ideas here. One is basically to digitalize the credit to make it similar to startups or companies into shares. You can basically sharing the credit. You can split them into a portion like 30%, 10%, and based on your actual contribution, you can get the corresponding amount of credit. And this is one thing. Another part is more like a fun project or art project here. It's like also is honestly, even though I watch Nobel Prize I kind of every year, I don't like the system because I think this is a winner takes all system, and science is not like, even though they made the very original distribution, this one field cannot be just being built by just three people's contribution. There are like thousands of people who contribute into this field, and everyone should get their credit. So I was thinking, okay, what if we create this kind of like digital Nobel like prize? And it's not like awarded to a single or like up to three people. Everyone who contributes in the field, they can get their own personal like badge here as a reward. It's more like a chocolate for a card. If you look at Harry Potter, the wizard and witches are in those chocolate for cards. You can also get this badge by yourself if you're contributing to a certain field. And also, this is potentially one fun way, to attract users as they want to receive their badge as well.
Not to interrupt, but we're still seeing the title slide.
Oh, okay. Wait. Or how about now? You're. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's just do this. Yeah. So basically, this is a fun part: the science award, and also the tokens for credit sharing, and the third part is basically the e-commerce. And we are very familiar with e-commerce already because we're in this kind of like already use Amazon every day, eBay every day. We basically purchase stuff on Amazon. We trade stuff on eBay. But we don't really have such systems for scientific products. And when we made a purchase for a reagent, we probably still go to the Andre website to submit the order, get a quote, and submit to our system. It's a really slow system, I would say. And also you don't really read the reviews that well. And also, if you have any other reagent, you only use once. You don't really need it anymore. Basically, there is no way to kind of trade those second-handed products. Then we can think, okay, what if we can also bring this e-commerce idea into the scientific community to build this e-commerce platforms. On the platforms, you can basically purchase and sell reagent, and also actually, I think one rising field is this kind of a cloud science, cloud experiment. You basically outsource your experiment to companies. Here you may also outsource to other scientists who who have the bandwidth or who has a resource to do your experiment. Basically, it's more like a collaboration, but instead of collaborating by a collaborating agreement written in paper, you're basically using the platform to sign a contract and use to trade a service with each other, which can be a more efficient way to build collaboration rather than just to go around and ask if they want to collaborate. Most of the time, they probably don't want to collaborate because they cannot get enough credit from you. And lastly, I think in the paper we basically discuss is, okay, if we want to use this kind of introduce tokens into this system, how can we build these token systems? So the idea here is a multi-tier. It's more of a Web 2 plus Web 3, a combination of the two tokens. Basically, for the basic tokens, it's issued by the platform. It's a centralized platform, but it's issued by a platform. It cannot be easily traded with outside tokens or the real cryptocurrency. But the good thing is it's simple, and you don't have to worry about your money goes your wealth goes up or goes down every day. You basically see your tokens increasing every day, and also you can use those tokens to do some very basic functions on the platforms. For example, if the platforms will have more partners in the future, like conference organizers or general subscription or something, or like those reagent companies, basically those tokens can be used to trade those coupons from the companies. The second tier is basically we call it is more advanced tokens. It's more like Web3, where if it has its real values, real monetary values with it. You can use it to purchase service or to purchase reagent. It can be linked with a currency or not just directly with by itself, but this is more like a Web3 version of the tokens. And the final version of the tokens is just like ordinary version of the token. Special tokens, for example, the NFT we want to distribute as a scientific reward for the community. You cannot easily trade it, but there is a possibility you can auction it. And if it's from a very a famous scientist, someone may want to purchase those NFT. And I think that's all just for the quick description of the entire essay. And I think we probably want to open to leave more time to questions from the audience and discussion. And
yeah, thank you. Thanks for going over everything. Really appreciate it. Yeah, so for everybody else, kind of the structure of how we've done these events in the past is we'll take 15 minutes now and answer questions that are shared on the ResearchHub paper page. And then 15 minutes after that, so after like the bottom of the hour, we'll start to like open up the discussion within this call. So if anybody has a question, they hadn't posted it on the paper page, we can just talk about it live. So Yu has already picked out 2 questions from the ResearchHub page. So let's get started with those.
Yeah, so I went through the questions on the ResearchHub. They are all amazing questions. I would say they are very interesting questions. So there are many questions. I couldn't able to fit all of them in. So I kind of picked 2 questions I would think is pretty interesting to discuss here today. One is basically if the ResearchHub system or any similar system, this kind of like a review system should stay anonymous or like transparent. And I think it can be an open discussion here. In my opinion, I would like to make it transparent. The reason for that is I feel the current system is kind of like building this toxic environment to put reviewers and authors into the opposite side of a paper. So if you imagine if to go to a conference, everyone is transparent. They are not staying anonymous. They go to posters, they discuss their science, they have a very fruitful, nice conversation. It's not necessary to be criticized. If there is some flaws of the experiment, you can still bring them up, but just not in a way that will trigger the defense systems from others. I think it's even though you stay transparent, you can still kind of like be critical, but just not criticize others' papers. You can still give suggestions, and I think that's how I think these systems can be. But there can be other opinions. I would like to hear more, actually. And Patrick, should we open to discussion, or we should finish these questions first, and then we can make it more like an open discussion?
I think let's finish these questions first, and then we can open it up for everybody, because I know there were a couple comments on like anonymity and how that would potentially fit in with peer review.
Yeah. Okay, sure. And also the second question is actually from Patrick. What he asked is what can be the primary value prop of this platform from the perspective of academic scientists. I think it's a really hard question because different scientists have a different need. And for example, for someone, like a postdoc who has been staying in the lab for years with a very low salary, I think making some additional money on a platform can be a very attractive thing from the platform. For like some graduate student who haven't been publishing any papers, who is very excited to publish his first paper, but also frustrated by the current publishing systems. In order to publish paper in an open platform, that could be the most attractive feature of the platforms. And for PIs, they may they may need funding. What they need is funding and reputation. Building funding and get opportunities for funding. Building reputation and get opportunities for funding may be interesting to them. So I would say it's basically to first is to make the platforms have more functions, as many functions as possible, and second is basically to reach out to from the perspective of users to target them by like fixing the biggest problem for them. I think that's my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's actually pretty similar. I saw a tweet yesterday that was a paper from ASAP Bio that looked at motivations for why people share preprints. And the number one motivation is actually getting feedback from the community. A couple other things like citing it in grant applications as well. But yeah, I think feedback's probably the number one thing people would be looking for who would adopt these types of or use these tools as early adopters.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's the questions I picked. Maybe we can go over more questions from ResearchHub.
Yeah, sure. So, Ricardo, I know you have a bunch of questions in here. Is there anything else you'd like to ask?
I just wanted to make a quick comment on the anonymity. So yeah, anonymity is always a big kind of like point of question when it comes to this kind of platforms. And the reason why I made that that question was basically because I think most of the times you would probably like to be yourself, so non-anonymous. But there could be some instances in which you could prefer to be. So my question could actually be more like, do you think there should be a sort of like a toggle that you could kind of like enable where you could be, either anonymous or non-anonymous, depending on the situation, or you should be always transparent in what you do? I'm in favor of being transparent, but I could see, some situations where people would like to not be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I mean, in some like, as a platform, we the I think the big thing is we always think more scenarios. The more we think, the better for the better the user experience is. So I think give the options to stay anonymous. It can be a very useful feature if they want to stay anonymous.
And do you think anonym non-anonymity should be incentivized? So someone should be incentivized to stay transparent, while kind of be disincentivized to be anonymous, or it should be kind of like on the same level, and anyone should be free to kind of like choose whatever they prefer?
No, I would say that I think that's based on the value of the platform or the culture of the platform. If we are trying to build an open platform and encourage people to have this open discussion, we should basically incentivize people to be open. For example, we give more RSC if they stay open. You can still get some, but if you stay anonymous, but if you stay open, we can have you give you extra, something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Yeah, for context, like the leading platform for post-publication peer review, PubPeer, they have anonymity as part of their platform, and even their founder stayed anonymous for the first 5 years of the project because he was worried about the professional consequences of enabling like open peer review. Like there would be people in his field who'd be upset about that. So yeah, I think anonymity is a tough question. There's a lot kind of baked into it. Jonathan?
Yeah, I wanted to also add to this anonymity discussion something that I find interesting that we have not touched upon is if you have anonymous responses and you have these upvote, downvote mechanisms or reward mechanisms on the platform, you could potentially kind of reward the merit of the response or the merit of the paper more objectively than if it is attached to a certain name. Somebody who already has, for example, a lot of reputation will have an easy time gaining more of it. Or if you're an established professor, you have more respect and you easily manipulate, so to say, or the audience is biased. So if you have like bold, and then you use these mechanisms of reward and upvote, downvote, then you can actually much more easily display the honest opinion of the people based on the merit of the scientific contribution. That's maybe something that I think we should also consider. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point. That's you are talking about from the other direction. Basically, if the paper is from a more like a famous scientist, people are biased. I think that's true, and especially they are established and scientists who have published a lot of articles in the field. I kind of think that's natural, and I don't really have a solution now. But what do you think, Jonathan?
may I respond? I also think it's very natural, and that's I think why it should be for come, right? Like I think it also includes institutions, especially those, because if you have like a Harvard or MIT, or then you have Oxford, Cambridge, or you are some random university in Africa, it has a different like appearance in the eye of the reader. And I think it would be great if we could use actual blockchain technology to prove that institutions like Harvard and scientists from those institutions are there, but they are in the system, they are equal to the others, you know, so that we can show that the discussion is what is the merit instead of the names of the institution. So that we have, and yeah, I think that would be important on a platform like this.
Yes, and also I think that to some degree, it's actually our mindset is already trained by this current system. People are publishing more on Nature or Science or from Harvard. They basically they should receive more credit or they are better than the others. Like instead of looking at the real science, the real data behind that. I think one thing we can I really hope this system can change, or ResearchHub can also to help us to build this new mindset is we look at the data more. People are criticizing or pay attention to the data rather than just the institutions. We can there can be some we may need some mechanism to trigger that. For example, before I think one thing before people are just trained to look at just the journal titles, because the paper is longer and longer. If you were like looking at one paper, it's like 6 figures. Each figure is like 10 panels, and you don't really have the time to look at their data more carefully. And you just, it's from Nature, and it must be good. It's from Harvard, it must be good. But if like let's say cut them into one panel, like in the 1980s, probably just one figure, one like can be a paper. If we cannot encourage that, and the people will, it's just one figure. People will look at more into the science part rather than other things besides science.
Yes, Kobe, do you have a thought here?
Yeah, about anonymity, I guess I had a question, but in addition to that, I'm going to say my 2 cents about anonymity, because we did discuss it in our recent conversation, and you guys all make good points. Anonymity is important, and one of the things we chatted about, the best idea is to, if we go with the anonymous route, we would at least showcase like a person's reputation, but not necessarily the exact number, so it can be traced to the exact person, but more like the percentile of reputation they are. So you can see, you're not necessarily going to see like a person's name, you're going to see like the percentile of reputation they are. Because I do agree, like for example, when I upvote on ResearchHub, I tend to upvote more content by our editors, and that's not necessarily, and I am aware that there is a bias there. I don't like it, but there is a human bias in there. So definitely something needs to be done here. Now, my second question was actually not about anonymity, but Joyce, do you want to finish up the anonymity discussion before we move on to other topics?
I think we can move on to other topics. Do you want to bring this up?
Yeah, I guess it's less of a particular question, but more like a seeking to understand. I saw that you presented a slide. There was like a slide about e-commerce, and I wanted to get further clarification about how that would work in practically speaking. It seems like a marketplace where like of ideas and also like physical goods like reagents and stuff like that. And I know that you also had like 3 tiers of tokens, and some of them could be purchased, and other ones, cannot be purchased, like NFTs and stuff like that. And I wanted to get a sense of like how do you foresee like this trading taking place? Like, do I need, as a scientist, if I wanted to buy something like a reagent would I need to purchase tokens, or would they be like kind of like given to me based on some merit?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question here. Is like the e-commerce itself is a very big thing. It's if you just look at the e-commerce in our real communities, it's including many things. So we may have to split it into different sections to discuss in terms of how to exactly implement it. And just to talk about tokens and the purchasing, I would say for the purchasing side, and I think one of the questions in a ResearchHub is how, if people sell, if they use the tokens that itself, the value is fluctuating, and will you lose money by just selling on this? So that's the second tier. That's why we kind of like set the second tier. We kind of link these tokens to a real currency. The fluctuation of that currency is relatively stable than the RFC, hopefully. And for example, the real currency in the world, like US dollars or something else. But also, I would like to, the second-hand reagent thing. I think I kind of I like to bring up one system that is a really small e-commerce system in China. People are not very hasn't really paid attention to it. Is people are trading those second-handed stuff on the platforms, but instead of just market it into certain real money, they kind of trade as those small red flowers. It's like you can gain red flowers by giving away your stuff, and also if you want to purchase something, you can also give your red flowers to someone who has this product. More like showing a goodwill to others by sharing stuff rather than just sell and purchase. I'm mostly talking about between scientists. We've already actually in Harvard there is a system. There is a website link. In the campus, you can basically list your second-handed stuff on it. But I stayed in Harvard for nearly 8 years. I never opened it once. I feel it can have a better, and people have the need. People kind of send the emails around to ask for reagent. But I feel there should be a better system for that. And this can be a system for people to share their stuff, their unused or second-handed reagent to others. And if you worry about the quality, then just directly purchase from the vendor who has a higher quality standard QC. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, very interesting about the red flower mechanism. Thanks for the feedback.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, so if anybody in the audience has any questions, we'll open it up. And to get started, one thing I wanted to mention you is you kind of work in this concept of peer scientists are allowed to do peer reviews on research outputs. So I'm curious what you think of allowing non-peers. So, or I guess how do you define peer? Is that somebody within your own field? And then are you open for someone totally outside of academia to be able to share peer reviews on a scientist's work? I'm just curious what you think about the peer concept.
It's in terms of the peers, I feel it's a very different people may have different definitions for it. I was initially thinking about peers as everyone who has a scientific background. It's not restricted to the one who is doing exactly the same in the exactly same field as we are. I'm not sure if it's interesting. It really depends on if the ResearchGate should open to the entire public, or they should stay as a academia or scientific community. If it stays as a scientific community, the people here are already within the definition of my definition. I think everyone on the community on the ResearchHub can comment. Especially, I think I would kind of encourage people who are not in the same field of comment to read others' manuscript and to comment, because nowadays the papers are more and more interdisciplinary. One scientists from one field, they cannot really judge the entire thing of one manuscript. That's why I also think we should encourage people from different disciplines to comment, especially on biologists. Honestly, I'm a biologist. I'm no offense to other biologists. We are not really good at numbers or like statistics and physics. At least I'm not really good at it. I think if my paper has been reviewed by a statistician or someone who has more math background, I would probably be more confident in terms of all the statistics analysis I used in my paper. That's something But then I think that's a question. As I mentioned, if we should open ResearchHub to an entire public, to non-scientific people.
Yeah, thanks for expanding. I think it's like some kind of comment curation to make sure that like the author's time isn't being wasted, so that way people outside of academia can share criticisms, but someone validates that they actually are worth the author's time to respond to. Jonathan?
When I was thinking about this stuff, I thought about like flares on Reddit, where you can basically earn membership, so to say, in like this, and in this hub you have, for example, say physics and chemistry background. Then you have the flares of physics and chemistry. You might also comment on biology, and if you participate in this discussion and you make valuable contribution, then you might earn the flare. And so you can show off what kind of expertise you have, because then you encourage like universal geniuses like Teslas who can contribute to multiple disciplines. But you can also have people who are just like single field experts and really deep in that. And I think that would be a nice way to do it, because then everyone could participate, but the flare would indicate whether they have the background or not. So the public could also participate, have no flare, and earn one. So you could really be a citizen scientist, actually get the credit not from a degree or from some kind of institution, but from the community itself, which says, what this person thinks is scientific according to the other scientists. So I think that would be quite ideal.
Yeah, I think also one feature can be is like as an author you can invite for example, you are doing microscopy and you want the other microscopists to basically comment on the microscopy region of the paper. You can basically set a number of tokens. You invite others to review on this particular section.
Cool. Joanna?
Hi, you, and thank you for the concept. Do you think this could be used as a cloud between universities all over the world? I mean, even as an exchange system. And also, I like the idea of tokens and incentivizing research. Yeah, so do you think
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it is viable as a system between universities?
Sorry, correct me if I understand the question wrong. You mentioned the system can be used by different universities across the globe. I mean, it's ideally yes, but given the current geopolitical pressures across the whole world, I honestly don't know. And I wish one day we can become one platform. But I think based on my understanding of the current situation, at least China may want to build their own. We can connect with each other. But I think they may be open to connect if the network, at least from China's perspective, if the network stays in academia, not extended into the public, because once it becomes public, you don't really know what can happen on the platform. There is no control anymore. Second is they can connect, but they may want their own platforms. It's just because if there are any conflict that happens, for example, right now, what's going on in the world, even ResearchHub is may not be directly willingness to do that. There may be under some pressure to cut the access from countries they may have to cut. So that's from that perspective, I think it's it can be like a kind of a consortium, or like basically a big network that has multiple networks, smaller network in it. But I don't think one platforms can cover the entire globe.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. If it's not fully decentralized, like if it's a cloud platform, wherever the like host company is, they have like regulations to deal with. So for instance, for ResearchHub, like we have to make sure that anyone who signs up and earns tokens isn't on like the United States like active terrorism list. So there are some like weird kind of regulations that I'm sure exist in like every country if it's going to be a cloud-based platform that's run by a nonprofit or a for-profit company. Satvik?
Yeah, I had two questions. So the first one is kind of in line with what Joanna was asking, I think. So since assuming that this won't be a single community, because there would always be competition between communities trying to establish such a system. Do you have any thoughts on the transferability of rep in between communities? For example, citation is sort of a universal metric that we can track right now. But what about if I build up a huge reputation on, say, ResearchHub, and then I get interested in VitaDAO, for example, and then I have to take it over from there. So do you see transferability in rep, or like sort of a universal system for reputation itself, or do you think it should be specific to one community?
I think that's a very interesting point. So if we would look at our like the real world, right? Even for the we have Amazon, we have Walmart, we have more Target, blah blah blah, and we have Twitter, we have Facebook. They are always competing with each other. But for the research side, we can really see we had a ResearchGate before, and we they are also peer. The PeerJ or something as very similar things. I mean, we have to go back to understand where those platforms from. The first is basically those one reason is capital reasons. People see the see the capital interest in this field, then they want to get their own big cake, so they start to build a competing platform. So that's one reason. Which I mean, I haven't seen that in the scientific community yet. That's also why there is no many innovative companies in the field, because there is not much capital interest. But we can this can change in the future. The second part is, well, the new platforms is always from a new need, right? If we can if this platform has some problems and that needs to be solved, if we can already solve it, and I don't really see a new platform coming out. But if we have a problem and it cannot be solved, if we haven't solved it, then the new platforms can come in and to solve the problem. Then it starts with people can start think, oh, this is a new platform, it already solve that problem. I'm kind of I don't really like to ResearchHub anymore, or something like that. They may switch into a new platforms. So as long as we keep updated with the to solve all the needs for scientists, I think people are it's hard to switch platform. That's why it's people are kind of sticky with it's kind of like also from the user experience, you are used to one platform, it's hard to switch to another one. For example, the Facebook spends so much money trying to steal users from TikTok, but still it's really hard. And because people are used to TikTok and they just stick to that. And yeah, so there is a huge cost to switch platforms.
Okay, just to make sure that I'm getting this right, there would be like you would have to start from zero when you switch a platform, right?
Yes. Well, if there's two platforms, they are competing with each other. I guess that they are not willing to collaborate. If they are willing to collaborate, there are definitely a possibility to connect with each other, to share things. I think that's at the end is more of a business decision between the two platforms, or if this community is governed, is like a DAO, is governed by the users. The users, it depends on the users' vote. Users would like to make it connected, then it has to be connected because that's the principle of the community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ricardo?
Yeah, I like that we're talking about needs, because my two questions were exactly about the needs of different, kind of like target audience, or let's say peers. So you told us you're a biologist and I'm an engineer, so we definitely have different needs. And this is why I wanted to ask you, what kind of, like, you were talking about, developing different features for a platform. How much, how all encompassing you think a platform should be to kind of like fulfill all the needs of different kind of like targets. Just to give you an example, I used a couple times a ResearchGate to ask for specific protocols for something that we're using in the lab. And I think this would not be of much interest for other kinds of populations, let's say kind of like other type of scientists. So how do you feel like could be possible to kind of like put together all these people and create a need that could be, common for everyone? Or you think it could be easier to start from specific needs that are tailored for a specific kind of like set of scientists and then develop from there? And on a similar note, I was thinking about the different value propositions for different actors. So here we have PhDs, people from masters, postdocs, PIs, we have universities. How, the question is similar, like how to align the incentives that kind of like align the desire for these people to be able to contribute to the platform. Is there a specific segment that you see as, with more potential to be interested in the platform and actually use the platform?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question. My opinions on that is, again, it comes to Patrick. So what's the direction of the companies, right? If we, there are one example is iPhone, right? People have a different need on iPhone. People use iPhone for different things. So what they do is they basically provide platforms to allow other engineers, software engineers, to develop new apps. Basically, at the end, the iPhone is a platform to provide other developers to kind of like fulfill those needs. Those are only fit to a small group of people, but not to everyone. So I think maybe one day ResearchHub will also become a platform that allows other developers to develop a specific apps to fulfill the need for a smaller group.
Cool, great question. Yeah, so for the last 10 minutes, I'd like to kind of shift the topic over to the governance system that you proposed, Yu. You mentioned that there would be kind of like three groups. One is the team working on the platform. Another would be like a scientific advisory board. And then the third is capital investors. And I guess the fourth is like the actual users of the platform.
Mm-hmm.
Can you go into this is a topic that's like talked about a lot in the DeSci community, like how decentralized should governance for platform be while still being able to like iterate quickly and like act as a tech startup? So yeah, I wonder if you can go into a little bit of detail over like how you see like the ideal governance of a platform like this, and then talk about it as a group for a little bit.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I grew up into I would like to compare it to this kind of like political system. I grew up in China, so I stayed in China for 20 years, so I know very well how the Communist Party works, and also I stayed in the Western countries about 12 years. I also know how the democratic system works. So I like it. I feel both system has their own benefits, and the ideal way is like how we can borrow the benefits or the advantages from the two systems and build into this new this platform to build a new, we call it probably a new democracy or democratic systems. I think for the general users, from governing this platform is probably not the thing we're most interested in terms of how to use the platforms. But we can but we also want to, as from the user's perspective, I will also want to have the power to say no, or I'll have the channel to say something if there is something wrong on my side. So I think that's the key of the system, is basically to give the users their a channel to voice, or also, as I mentioned, in the system, if there is a big decision and that is rejected by a certain amount of users on the platform, this decision is basically rejected. Such criteria. I mean, I still think the general daily activities can still be managed by the companies. It just give the users to make big decisions, or give the channels for them to voice their concerns or need.
Totally. Well, one thing we've thought about a little bit with ResearchHub is like replacing a board vote with a community vote. So like anything that would traditionally go to board approval in like a regular standard like US C Corp would go to a community vote instead. But even this is like not the perfect, I think, like framing of the decision, because there are things like, hey, we just hired a new employee, like let's approve the equity grant, where that's probably like below the awareness of like what most users want to participate in. So I think defining like what topics would go to a community vote, where you say like these are the big decisions that the user base needs to have veto power over, that's a difficult thing. So curious, like if you have any just like off the top of your head ideas that would qualify for that type of like decision making.
Or you can basically, if you worry about things like this, I think for a decision you can maybe you can, for any decisions you can have like something like let's say a few days, 1 to 3 days, like period. If you make the decision and you see a huge fight back from the user communities, then you can basically trigger a user vote, something like that. I don't really know if that can work well or not. But again, it's like basically give the users the chance to say no.
Oh, I like that idea. That's pretty good. If it's like retrospective, like a certain portion of users are upset about a given decision, it can trigger some kind of like recall vote or something like that. That's interesting. Yeah, so we have about 5 minutes left. Does anybody have any last questions before we wrap up on the Journal Club and talk about the bounties designs? Cool. Well, if not, thank you so much for coming, Yu. This was a blast. Like, really appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing more comments on ResearchHub on your paper.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, and thanks everyone for participating in the conversation. I really learned a lot from everyone.
Cool. Thank you. So I'll stop the recording.